She doesn't want to hear this talk. Thank you. Is that okay?
Yep.
And the string behind it come a little undone. Dharma. Dharma.
If you want to sit up, Carrie.
Back from Vrindavan. Did your wife also go to Vrindavan? Oh, good. Wonderful. Okay. We're alone here today, so everything's Hari Om, Hari Om. Is that loud enough or? Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari
I
Om.
don't hear it through the speaker.
Oh, you can hear it?
But I don't hear it through the speaker.
You don't hear it through the speaker?
Right.
But I'm going to start talking if I train my voice.
Right.
That's probably, especially when the room fills. Yeah, that's okay. Thank you. I don't like to hear my voice projected this way, but okay. Om Mangalam Gurudevaya Devye Matriksha Mangalam Mangalam Bhakta Brindebhyo Sarvalokaya Mangalam Om Stapakaya Dharmasya Sarvadharma Sarupine Avatara Varishtaya Ramakrishnaya Mangalam Om Sarashiva Samarambam Shankara Charamajamam Ashmara Chara Prayantam Vande Gurum Paramparam Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Gurureva Param Brahman Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Om Bhadrakali Namo Nityam Saraswati Namo Namaha Veda Viranga Vedanta Vijjasthana Evacha Sri Ganesha Sharada Guru Bhyo Namaha Hari Om. I'm all sorry, a little late start. I think people came late because it was parking. It was a summer, today's a summer day. It's weird to say the summer, but it's, we have summer weather here. Very beautiful. So last week we started a new series on kind of principles of Bhakti Yoga. And last week we only mentioned Bhakti Yoga, right? Of course, it's all about Bhakti Yoga, but we talked about Kali Yuga. And the justification was that in Kali Yuga, Sri Ramakrishna says, Sri Chaitanya says, the Srimad Bhagavatam says, the Padma Purana says, so many scriptures say that this is the appropriate path in Kali Yuga. And we read some verses describing that famous verse at the end of the Bhagavatam, the 12th skanda, that says that while Kali Yuga has many faults, it has one great quality, that by chanting Krishna's name, chanting God's name with love and devotion, one can be liberated from the material world and attain the supreme abode, right? The supreme state, we can attain the supreme, right? So that is the way. And so we focused on a very famous story. Everybody here, except you know the story, but a very famous story of actually, it's not that famous. That's one of the reasons we focused on it. I mean, it is famous within a certain world, a certain thing, but the story of the demon Kali being chastised by Parikshit Maharaj when he discovered him in a ghastly symbolic scene where the demon Kali was a low-class person dressed like a king, beating a bull and a cow, right? That's the scene we opened with. And the cow was crying, the bull was on. So then we read two chapters. One of the reasons I'm taking another swipe at it. We didn't get a chance to really unpack some of the points because we actually only our focus was on 4 verses, but we read 2 chapters in order to get to those 4 verses because we needed the story, and all those verses could be relished and dived into. But the narrative is very important. We read from Swami Tapasyananda's narrative translation of those 2 chapters, and then I did my own translation of those 4 verses. 4 or 6 verses? What did I give you? I think 6 verses. Whatever I gave you. 4 verses? I forget. Anyways. Yeah, I think 4. The clinchers, right? The important ones. And the reason we did because the demon Kali pollutes, is a pollution of this age. I mean, if we consider that this is Kali Yuga, this is a way of thinking, and it means the dark age of pollution, right? And the dharma, actually, that and so the in the story, the cow was considered is a symbol of the earth, right? Who's being tortured, she's still being tortured now, and then the bull represents dharma, and dharma is also being tortured. And in the scene, 3 legs have been broken or cut, and he's on 1 leg. A very pitiful scene. There are some paintings. I was looking for, I posted something on that as a secondary thing. I found not dramatic images. I didn't want it, but some paintings of this, literally you see, was 4 legs cut off, 3 legs bloodied, cut off. The scene is meant to be horrific, right? It is a horrific scene, He says on one tottering, urinating, somehow another trying to walk on 1 leg, right? Horrible scene. And then and then the beautiful dialogue where the bull asks the earth, "Why are you crying?" And it lists all the situations of Kali Yuga. Is it because of this? Is it because of this? And I mean, it's like she was going down my WhatsApp feed. The thing is like one thing after another. Is it because of this? And then when King Parikshit goes and sees this horrible scene, the bull asks, "You tell us what happened." And then he thinks, and then Parikshit answers. I'm going to go to that verse. It's in the early part of my notes. Let me find it here. Right. It says he says in Satya Yuga, in the pure age, your 4 legs were Dharma's 4 legs, right, were established as austerity, purity, mercy, and truthfulness. Those are the things you're supposed to remember, right? Austerity, purity, mercy, and truthfulness. Tapa, Saucham, Daya, and Satya, right? And so these are the 4 legs of Dharma, the 4 pillars of Dharma, right? The whole, because legs are something, pillars are a deeper type of metaphor. And when we talk about Dharma, I also said these are the 4 qualities of the soul. Maybe the soul has more than just 4 qualities, right? But these are 4 that can be contemplated, right, easily. The soul is by nature controlled and disciplined. It's by nature pure. It's by nature merciful. It's by nature compassionate and truthful. It's truth itself, actually. Right? Actually, to say that it's truthful, of course, we can be truthful and not truthful. We can be kind or mean, right? We can act selfishly or selflessly or selfishly. We can be in pure states of consciousness or pure states of body and impure states of like that. But so when when we are in impure states or states of dishonesty or states of cruelty and like this, in a certain sense, we're not being ourselves, right? We're off center, and to say that we should be truthful. This is a heavy moralistic chapter, right? So it's telling you, be truthful and avoid places where untruth abides. Be pure and avoid where impurity abides. And it gives radical examples of impurity and radical examples of cruelty, slaughterhouse, and things like that. It's like most of our problems are probably not. I mean, we can be unkind and unmerciful without running a slaughterhouse, right? But it's also it's not that we should be pure or we should be clean or we should be honest, and we should. This is the moral thing, but we're purity. These are the natural qualities of the soul. We are merciful. We're mercy, right? We're parts and parts. There's 8 or 9 different Indic schools of thought. We can say whoever we think we are, and whatever different scriptures and schools of thought think we are. All of them would probably say at the core we're truth. Actually, I'll tell you what the scripture said. We're truth, beauty, and goodness, right? Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram. Brahman is nature. Satyam, God is nature. Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram. Brahman's nature is Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram. Our nature is Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram, right? And so that's our real nature, right? So when we are not acting according to our nature, we're off. But it's not like we stop being pure. That is our nature. It's not that we stop being beautiful and wonderful, right? But we get lost and we can't find it. Can't find our. I mean, we also use the term like self-realization, right? Trying to find who we are, right? This is who we are. I mean, every scripture will say something like any scripture that says something different. Our scriptures don't say something different. There are scriptures that may say something different about who they say we are. But our scripture says that we're Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram, right? Truth, beauty, and good. We're beautiful. It's good to constantly remember this is actually our nature. So these are the 4 qualities of the soul, right? These and many other qualities. But there's the soul itself, right? And so the moral imperative, the Yama Niyama, be good, do good, don't be bad, don't do bad. Like you can see, this is the nature of the text, the moment in the text. Right, but why? Because it's our nature. It's because we're the harm from it is great when we go against our nature. Many times we see, and in my kind of pastoral role with the devotees, people struggle. It's like, oh, but this is my, trying to find out what their nature is, right? Oh, this is natural to me. It's like, of course, we all have our individuality and our karmas and samskaras and ways we're expressing, and maybe the way God's expressing through us, right? They're going to be different. We have to find ourselves like that. But none of those are actually our nature. Our essential nature is Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram, right? Before whatever it is that we. I mean, there's very real ways that we need to be honest to ourselves and be authentic to ourselves, right? But to really be authentic to ourselves is Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram. You get the core, right? We're getting at the ontological reality of who we are and who God is, right? And what reality is, right? So it says, in Sattva Yuga, your 4 legs were established as austerity, purity, mercy, and truthfulness. But it appears that 3 of your legs are broken by adharma. So Kali Yuga is identified as adharma, right? The opposite of dharma. Or the opposite of religion, opposite of a religious principle, opposite of proper duty, whatever your definition of dharma is. But a foundational definition of dharma is our nature, right? Opposite of our nature, right? That the thing that's against our nature, right, taking us away from the proper expression of our nature, is destroying these 3 legs, right? And then it said, what? Of course, maybe some of you have it, but what was the 4 legs or the 4 qualities of our nature, or the 4 legs of religion, the 4 legs of dharma? What are they being destroyed by? Right? It had strange words. I mean, the Sanskrit, smaya, sangha, and madayi, right? Smaya means arrogance and pride, right? So it's good to. I mean, we said a lot of things last week, so we're going to go back to where the highlighter should have gone. I took a class on note taking my first time in college, and it was on highlighting and underlining. So I remember this is something you would highlight the verse and then underline these words with a red marker. I remember that. If I still did that, I would have got better grades. I got good training. Yeah. There's a way of doing it. we call them highlighted, underlined verses or highlighted verses. You have to remember these things, right? So pride, how is three austerity or discipline, self-control, cleanliness or purity, mercy or kindness and compassion, truth, truthfulness, honesty. What attacks them? Dharma, what does it use to attack it? It attracts it through pride, the first thing. So that's a big thing. We'll see as we contemplate these or anything. You can contemplate almost any problem if you really poke at it enough, right? We don't like to poke at it because it makes us look bad, because usually it's pride and ego somehow or another mixed into it, you know. So pride and sangha here. Sangha means many things. It means attachment, right? So association or attachment. So asanga also means like when one becomes detached, right? So somebody who's like a sadhu is a sangha. A sangi means he's detached. Or in higher devotional life, it says, one of the signs of spiritual thing is sangha. One becomes very attached to God, right? So sangha has all kinds of meanings, right? Sangha also means community. I mean, we use the word many ways, but here it's meant to be as a dangerous fault to be careful with, right? So you can see overly attachment's a problem, right? For many reasons, right? And then the third is madaihi, right? And it's a hard thing to translate. The way I gave it, what did I use? Blinding passion, right? I spent 3 days trying to figure out the right word, right? And consulting Sanskrit dictionaries, all this type of stuff. I was about to call my friend, who's a Sanskrit scholar at UC Berkeley, right? Specializing in these type of texts, right? It says, what's the proper, because I want, it has to be a word that, means something. Because it could mean passion, it could mean intoxication, right? But intoxication is mentioned later. So it's like, what does it, mean? And passion is mentioned later. So these are, so he said, so I saw Swami Tapasyananda's translation. I should have just stuck with that at the beginning. Blinding passion, right? The type of passion that blinds you. There's a different. We can be passionate about God, passionate about life. Passion is not bad. Actually, as we go through this series, the highest states of devotion is called passion, raga, right? Passionate devotion is raga. So in order to get to that passion, we have to deal with other types of passion. That's not blind. That's also blinding. Right, right, but that's at another level, right? The saints are crazy, right? And I mean, we look at the world, and everyone's crazy, but doesn't mean they're saints, right? We have to get there, right?
Yeah.
Right, and we'll see. All these things are related, right? And then the example I use, so I give passion, arrogance, delusion, pride, conceit. Right, and then I gave the example. One of the use of the word is like the redding elephant. An elephant's in heat, that's very dangerous, right? Out of control, natural but out of control, and considered dangerous, right? And sometimes interesting. When they're I watched a documentary on elephant. I like elephants, but I watched a documentary on elephants. They're talking these animal sanctuaries like that. And so when a young male elephant's in heat, right, and the sanctuaries don't have a lot of, it's an unnatural situation already, means that they're there because it's a depleted population, right? And normally in a community, right, of elephants or any community, the community fixes excesses, right? It's like, so if everybody knows how to behave because the community guides you in their behavior and they reward you or punish you when you outstep, right? But in a situation where there's only 3 or 4 elephants, right? They don't have the community to correct out of control adolescent behavior. We can imagine this in our human society also, when there's not the right examples and things like this in society and at home and community, that we don't know what to do. And therefore our natural blinding passion that comes, right? When we're in heat or whatever other situation we're in, the equivalent of that, whatever is like that, we don't know what to do, right? And we don't always do correct, right? And so what happens is that a rutting adolescent elephant, a young elephant will get in fights with other and kill other elephants, And when you only have a few elephants in order to have a reserve, right? That's unacceptable. Or they'll kill a rhinoceros, right? And rhinoceroses are rarer than elephants, right? So this becomes extremely dangerous, right? So what do? They borrow a big, mature male elephant from another reserve, and as soon as it steps on the property or on that, it knocks. The younger elephant gets corrected, right? And so that's a very interesting. I mean, I've thought of that a lot because we're in a world of young running elephants. Yeah. We have to deal with like that. So it's we've been at this a long time. We have all kinds of experiences, right? But anyway, that's what this means. That's another word this means. So the things that attack these four principles or these four disciplines or these four foundations or pillars or four qualities or the nature of the soul, right, is pride, attachment, right, selfish attachment, unnatural attachment, right, unhealthy attachment. As soon as they say unnatural, then we're giving a weird. I mean, these are all trigger words, right? So I'm trying to use them in a non-judgmental way, right? But at the same time, we're critiquing, right? Not that everything is not peachy, right? So we have to. But I'm conscious of the fact that in a modern moment of community religious life and like that, all these things are there's a what is it, tripwires on everything, right? So we mean it in a loving way, right? So unhealthy, maybe that we can use that. Unhealthy is not a judgment; it's a description. Unnatural has now become a description and a critique, right? Unhealthy is still, I think, or unuseful or something like this, or you can say something's unkind without still being a description, even though that's both a description as well as a critique, right? And passion. So pride, attachment, and what was it? Blinding passion. I think I don't have it on my notes. That's why. So, excuse me. So in the story, so then it mentions so these things are mentioned, and then he says, and even this last leg of religion is being attacked by a fourth thing, right? You have pride, you have attachment, and you have blinding passion. And that fourth leg, the last leg of religion, the last leg of dharma, is being attacked by deceit, right? By dishonesty. Of course, deceit is another word for dishonesty, but it's different than dishonesty. A lie is a lie. Deceit is a different thing, right? You can see there's all kinds of gradations of lies, and none of them are good. That's part of the discussion today, right? But deceit it's gnawing at the very foundation of dharma and society and government and trust and democracy. I mean, everything is like you can see lies aren't destroying honesty. It's deceit that's destroying, and there's all kinds of levels of that, right? But anyways, right. So we can use. I think as it gets cold, maybe we'll close just this one a little bit. Yeah. It will. I think the temperature will tend to drop. Yeah. We started hot and sweaty. Now it's going to change. I think as the night goes. So we're using the idea. So we've used pillar or legs of dharma, right? So these are metaphors. Obviously, these aren't actually pillars. They're not actually legs, right? It's like. But so another metaphor that can be used, and that's kind of the title I gave this talk, is foundation, right? Because I think that's also helpful. Right, way of thinking of principles, the foundations of a spiritual life, foundations, right? And a foundation. So what is what's a foundation? I mean, there's foundations, that raise money for elephants, elephant reserve. That's not what we mean by foundation. But it's the substructure that holds something up. Right, that safely holds something up, right? The lowest load-bearing part of a building is the foundation. That's a definition, right? Typically, it's below ground. Sometimes you build we have these coutiers. Most of the foundation of our coutiers are above ground. They're uniquely built. They're still probably a foot or below, but then about 2 feet above the found. We built them that way because of flood dangers. So we built the foundations high, right, and then the building awkwardly stands on top of them, right. But like this building, it's the foundation of this building along the edges goes 3-4 feet below this building, right. So the foundation are often below ground. I think that's important because most of the things, the foundations we don't see, right? They're not obvious, right? What the foundations are of something, right? They're obvious to whom? They're obvious to builders, architects, right? Or people who, or what is it? Code inspectors, right? Code inspectors are really important, right? Another name for a code inspector? It's called guru. right, to make sure things are going okay, right? Right. These things are they have to make sure the foundations are safe in order to what you're building, right? It's also so that's like in building code. That's what we mean by foundation, right? A little bit more abstractly or more symbolically, it's like underlying basis of something, right? We use or the underlying principle of something is its foundation. Right, a foundational principle of Christianity is love, or something like. It's like that's not the building, it's not using it, but it's still without that. What type of Christianity do you have? That's the primary. You can make that type of statement, right? Other like base, bedrock, groundwork, support, underpinning, basis, substructure, right? These are the synonyms for such what we mean by this, right? And so, what purpose does the foundation? A foundation holds something up, right? But without a foundation, you can't build much without a foundation. You can build something without a foundation, right? And, looking out, we have a shed. We had the barn in the back in the corner, right? It's has a good foundation. It was built properly, right? To code and everything, right? But we have a step going up to it. Did you notice the step is like? It's like just a concrete bunch of bricks. We made a little step to step up into our barn shed, right? It's like, it's off the wall, right? So that was, I remember when it was done. We need a step here. And they, yeah, we'll do it really quick. And they did really. They poured. They did something, but not sufficient, right? It's already off the wall, right? And it's like but what it's holding is not this much brick, right? It's holding up a step. It should be, it's like probably a foot underground and a foot above ground. It probably needed to be better designed. The part that's underground needs to be stronger, right? But it's no big, eventually it will have to be broken apart and rebuilt, because even that one step needs to be safe. And at a certain point, that one step will not be safe. What to speak of a building, what to speak of a 2-story building or a 3-story building, 108-story building, right? Whatever how we want to stretch, as we stretch the metaphor to spiritual practice, right? So the foundation. So if you build something, you can build something on a foundation. Small things can be built, but things that you don't expect to last, you don't put much attention to the foundation, right? If you expect something to last, then you put a lot of attention to the foundation. That's given, right? And if it's potentially dangerous, not only that, then you also put a lot of attention into the foundation, right, of a building, right, or of a spiritual life, or of anything, or in a relationship, right, in a business, whatever you have to put so much. If you want it to last, you can start. You can just start a business right now, right? Make some things, sell it outside, right, until somebody gets sick and you get sued. Everything is. It's like you have to read. There are founding. There's important things. There's code. There are things to keep you safe, keep other people safe, to keep a business, and so they're the non-fun part of a business, the non-fun part of a relationship, non-fun part of an education, whatever it is. Whatever it is. Also It's definitely the non-fun part of religion. Right? That's for sure. Religion's a lot of fun. The foundation stuff is not fun, right? But if you want to have fun, right? The fact that if you want a good business, if you want a good education, you want a healthy relationship that lasts, that's safe, you have to put a building that lasts and it's safe. You'll have to put some attention into the non-fun part, right? And when this house was being built, when the extension was being built, we were so tired of foundational building. It was like 6-7 months, and we haven't seen a building yet. Right, but it needed to be done because it has to stand a long time. and be safe for all of us and for the generations to come, God willing, right? Right. So there's a saying, if you know me long enough, you probably may have heard me say this, talking about spiritual foundations and yamas and niyamas and things like that in the yoga system, these foundational disciplines and things like that, that it said if you build a building or a structure without a foundation, right? What are you building? People, anybody who hasn't heard me say it, can you guess what you're building? Huh? Yeah, I always say you're building an accident, right? If you build a building without a foundation, you're really building an accident, right? Eventually, I mean, hopefully not, right? Something's like, wow, I haven't fallen, awesome, it's like, just don't jump on it right now. It's like there are things built around here that we've kind of just built, it's like, but we're careful how we climb on them, and it's like because they're not that safe, but they're not that dangerous either. So we don't make a big deal of it. But if you build something serious and something complicated, right? Something so it's either it's an accident or it's extreme temporariness. You're building temporality into it. You're not building long lasting. It may not. Nobody may not get hurt. Nobody may not get. That's not right. Anyway, you know what I mean. Nobody may not get hurt. You know what I mean. Whatever. I think it's a triple negative or a quadruple negative. I don't know what I said. But but it may not last. Right. So you want it to last and you want it to be safe. And so what happens? If it doesn't last, right? Or and you have to tear it down, or it gets torn down for safety purposes, or it collapses. And hopefully nobody gets hurt if it collapses, right? Often people get hurt when buildings collapse, right? When businesses collapse, when governments collapse, when institutions collapse, when it's like all these, when relationships collapse, right? It's like these things. People often, unfortunately, get hurt, right? So we have to be. That's why we have to put a little attention to this, right? And it's like, and like I said, the foundation is not the fun part, right? And the beautiful part of this temple is not the part you don't see underground, right? And whether things are to code and enough nails are used every 6 inches and off center and it's like all those rules and all the things to make a safe building, a safe house, right? That's not the fun part, but the fun part is what you do in this room, right? We sing and dance and swoon and cry and complain and fight with the mother and then love the mother and be loved by the mother and get chastised by them. This is what a temple is, and so bhakti is not the real essence of bhakti is not the rules and regulations or principles or yamas niyamas, right? These should be left far behind, right? And the saints leave these things far behind, but they have them. Otherwise, they couldn't dance and swoon and safely, right? And you see, there's been saints who swooned and then collapsed and hurt themselves, right? Because they get the feeling, they get the feels, right? But without the necessary internal work and precaution, and so sometimes, Sri Ramakrishna made a comment, right? If you experience 1/10 of what I experienced, you die, right? We're not ready for the emotion that went through his body. If it went through our body, we die. Our body's not ready. We need to prepare. If we want to have, maybe not have that level of emotion, right? But you can see even higher states of emotion and relationship in the spiritual realm require some foundational work, hopefully to have been done or to be done, right? So looking at those 4 principles or these 4 legs, 4 pillars, we can also look at these also as just 4, not the only foundation. This is the one that's brought out in this text, in the Bhagavatam text that we read from, right? The Gita gives a different list. Actually, it gives the same list, it just numbers them differently, right? The Upanishads, the Manusmriti, the Padma Purana, the Vishnu Purana, the Garuda Purana, the Devi Bhagavatam, right? The Bhagavad Gita, the Yoga Sutra, the anyways, so many texts are in my head. I just I'm not Lakshmi Tantra. But anyways, there's so many these lists are there, right? Or they give a list and they're more or less there. You say, I'm going to read a couple verses of lists, right? And you realize, oh, that's just restating. Some of them, I mean, the exact words being used. Sometimes something else is added, something else. But ultimately, I mean, and the point is, all the great teachers, all the great saints, all the great avatars who've taught these things, trying to create a safe space for that, so that people can fly, that people can dance, people can soar in spiritual life, or attain samadhi, whatever the goal in that text or that technique is, right? All of them have more or less emphasized these foundational things, right? And it's easy to skip them or not notice them because we're not looking for them. Nobody wants to hear these things, right? And so we skip ahead to the ecstasy stuff, right? Dancing with the gopi stuff, rather than, it's like, oh, I have to figure out like they're totally selfless, and I'm seem to be at least a little bit selfish, right? Maybe it doesn't work, right? We have to think of these, so like we like to skip those parts, right? And so anyways, my point is that I don't want to forever focus on these things, right? And we should deal with them, be careful, and then quickly let's get building, right? Let's get building, not just digging, but building also. We want to fly, right? So tapa, saucham, daya, satyam, these amongst other things are foundational things, right? And what destroys our foundation, not only do we have to be careful, make sure we build a foundation, but then the foundation can also be destroyed. We have termites, right? These things have happened with us, water damage, like all kinds of stuff can destroy our foundation, right? So the same thing, pride, attachment, blinding passion, or other things, deceit, other things can blind, can even if we built a foundation, right? Or we worked on it, but it can also be destroyed if we're not careful. We still should be careful, right? So in that list, tapa, saucham, daya, satya, austerity, purity, mercy, and truthfulness, right? It starts with tapa. Tapa means austerity, means self-control, means discipline, some sort of discipline, right? The word tapa, so actually all of them are tapa, right? Tapas is listed as a separate thing, but try to be honest. That's a big austerity in this age, right? Try to be pure in an impure age. Try to keep your sentiments and mind and heart clean when everything around us is saying something different, right? On anything. You can choose anything, right? This emphasizes promiscuity and things like this. Like, I'm a sannyasi, right? I'm very careful what I click on, right? And we're discriminative. We try to be discriminative what we see, right? But I'm a man of a certain age, so the ads I'm getting, right? It's like I opened up my 2 days ago, opened my Facebook, have more sex. Like, was a message, like going, well, that's a message for a sannyasi, it's like, what do you do? It's like, and that's just like, and that's even with all the logarithms showing me Hare Krishna kirtan, I get all kinds of good stuff.
Yeah.
I got Ramakrishna monks dancing. I got Radhanath Swami lectures. I got all this stuff coming in, and the middle of it, it's like, and that's my feed, right? I won't imagine. We all deserve privacy of our own mind. Yeah. Right, but you can see. It's hard. It's actually hard. Everything is an austerity. Everything is difficult. It's difficult, right? So what does austerity mean? So the word tapa, there's in Sanskrit the word tapas is heat, right? And so tapas is also heat, right? You burn, and it says that when you have some self-discipline, heat's created, right? And so like, friction's created when you stop something from happening naturally, right? But when you stop them, then you create pressure. In other words, pressure is heat. Water's flowing, you stop it. There's going to be the equivalent of energetic pressure there, or heat, right? And so, and the stories, you have like these great ascetics standing on their head or standing on their toes with fire coming out of their head, right? This is the dramatic example of like full fire of heat, right? What are they going to use that power? It creates power. Another way of saying heat is power, right? And so there is a benefit right, of a little bit of self-discipline, right? A little bit of self-discipline brings power, right? Water just goes everywhere. It's wonderful. Water is doing what it does. If you channel it, right, you can create electricity, right? You can run your city. You can irrigate your yard, right? You can bring water. It's like by a little bit of control, right? Appropriate control, natural, guided and natural to our good and to the good of others. It brings power, right? And that power we also need. We're going to need that power to fuel our spiritual practices, right? Because the disciplines are, in the beginning, it seems like all of our practices are just disciplines, right? But then other practices are there of directing the mind a certain way, visualizing something, lovingly focusing on something, right? There's other practices where the mind is architecture of the mind, where you purposely, and those are disciplines, right? And we need energy. They're actually not that easy to do, right? Many spiritual practices, even beginning spiritual practices, most people can't do, right? You give somebody, let's focus on like our chakras or something like that. People can't. I mean, we don't have the mental power to focus on anything. Or to speak of something subtle that we can't see, feel, you can't lock it before. You have to.
The second one?
Yeah. You have to unlock this one. Okay. Yeah. You can lock. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. So heat up. The word tapa means to heat up. For example, by placing on a fire, right? In the process. So another thing about heating something up is this: how you purify something. Right, you melt gold, you boil water. This is the way we purify something, right? So purification, metals are heated and melted so the impurities may rise to the top, right, and be removed. So that's also something we can, with a little bit of self-discipline, impurities can be removed, right? It's one of the only ways to do it, unfortunately, and as well as energy and power are cultivated, right? So in the Rig Veda, 983:1, there's a verse, right? Atapta tanur natada moshnute. Without purifying the body through austerity, one cannot reach the final state, right? So tapas, some sort of tapas will always be there, right? According to the tradition, there'll be a different emphasis, perhaps. Like for a yogi trying to control the mind, a lot of the tapas is for mind control. For hatha yogi, it's about control of the body, right? So there's going to be different types of emphases. In bhakti yoga, it's going to be different, right? But still, it's there. So by sincerely practicing austerities, human beings can uplift and transform their lives from the mundane to the divine, right? But, and this is something we'll get to in the Gita. I'm already late. It should be performed without show, with a pure intent, and a peaceful mind, proper mental attitude, and in conformity, ideally, with the guidance of the guru or the scriptures or the community. We call sadhu. What is it? Guru, sadhu, and shastra, right? These are what should guide us, right? The spiritual community, elders, the tradition, right? The spiritual teacher who's guiding us, or our spiritual teachers that guide us, as well as the scriptures, who hopefully the spiritual teachers are guiding us in the scriptures, not just making it up or going against the scriptures, which often is the case. Right. So in the Bhagavatam we have these. Therefore, with the punchline at the end. Therefore, anybody who's really serious about spiritual life, right, should avoid these things really carefully, right? So other texts say similar things. In the Yoga Sutra, there's a Yamas Niyamas. Yamas mean restraints, right, and Niyama means observances, right? And so Yama is a core thing, means to restrain, to control, to rein in, right? The terms Yama is mentioned in the Vedas and the Puranas and Yoga Sutra is a way that's entered probably Western spiritual cultures, who people reading or thinking they're reading the Yoga Sutra, right? Right. So in some texts, 10 yamas and 10 niyamas are given. Right. And most of the texts, 10 yamas and 10 niyamas are given. In the Yoga Sutra, 5 yamas, 5 niyamas are given. So that's what most of us know. Right. The Devi Bhagavatam itself, which is the text we're giving classes in, theoretically, we were giving classes in, and hopefully continue giving classes in. Well, eventually, Ma will describe the yamas and niyamas, but she'll describe 10 yamas and 10 niyamas from the classical list, right? But in the Yoga Sutra, it's shortened, and so many of you already know it, right? Maybe I have the verse. Ahimsa satchamasteya brahmachari aparigraha yamaha. Ahimsa means nonviolence. Satya. So ahimsa means nonviolence. That corresponds to something, mercy, right? It's another aspect of mercy and compassion, right? But obviously it's not the same, but it's never related. Satya, well, that's identical, right? Truth, right? Asteya means non-stealing, right? So you can see that's part of honesty, perhaps, right? Brahmacharya means celibacy or continence. But actually, like married people who are in committed and relationships, right, are also considered brahmacharis in the scriptures, right? That's a type of brahmacharya. Because so Swami Vivekananda said, well, what type of brahmacharya? What have they given up? A householder, right? Somebody said, no, he's Swami Vivekananda one time said, oh yes, they're also brahmacharis according to the scriptures. What have they given up? Oh, they've given up promiscuity, right? That's a big thing. Right, so marriage that's one of the functions of marriage is to give up promiscuity, right? Of course, a monk gives it up in a more dramatic and maybe harsh way, right? But still, brahmacharya is still some sort of brahmacharya has to be there, some sort of control, right? Or doesn't have to be there, but as like that. And aparigraha means non-possessiveness, right? These are also, in case you're wondering, the classic sannyas vows. So sannyasis take these things really seriously, right? These are like strict, and so obvious. So it's also obvious that like with nonviolence, a police officer. Of course, police officers are a complicated character at present, right? We can imagine an ideal. And anyways, there's almost no way to imagine ideal in the way everything's so polluted in Kali Yuga, or military person that they're meant to protect. They use violence to protect the innocent and nonviolent. Let's assume, right? Ideally, in an ideal world, right? It's getting harder to see it, but we assume. I know both military people and police that do just that, right? But they're not the ones getting the warranted attention, right? But anyways, so that's going to be different than a monk, right? It's like Sri Ramakrishna gave the example, like, the story of the hiss but don't bite, right? That there was a snake who was a very, very dangerous snake, and everybody was fearful. He'd bite and kill everybody, right? And everybody was fearful of him. And so a holy man came, and he wasn't fearful. He said, I know a mantra, no problem. The snake came and tried to attack him. He said the mantra and made him like an earthworm. And he gave him spiritual intent. Don't harm anybody. Stop harming anybody. Why are you doing? You're killing and scaring everybody. It's a sin to cause fear in society and to harm people, right? Don't harm anybody. And he gave him a mantra. He says, you chant this mantra and you think of God. I'll see you again next time I come through here. I wander this way every couple of years. So some years later he came back and he looked for the snake, couldn't find it. He asked people, no, that snake's dead. I don't think it's dead. My disciple couldn't. I would know if my disciple had died. So he looked for the snake. He called it out by the spiritual name. Ananta Sheshadas or whatever name he gave him, And the snake came out, but he was so thin. Right? He says, why you look so thin? Oh, because you told me not to harm, so I'm now strict vegetarian. I'm eating nuts and twigs, so maybe that's it. This is not the natural diet for a snake, right? But it's a natural diet for a disciple, right? So I had to follow your advice. Like, no, it seems something more. Anything more? Oh yes. Some boys, they saw that that my nature had changed. I wouldn't bite, and they thrashed me against rocks and threw me away. And and the next morning I came, or in the middle of the night I woke up, and crawled with broken limbs, broken um, ribs back into my room, into my hole. And he says, why didn't you hiss at them? Right? He says, no, you told me not to. I didn't tell you not to. I told you not to bite them. I didn't tell you not to hiss at them. Right? So sometimes you have to protect your family. You have to hiss. Doesn't mean you bite. Right? It's like, and there may be horrible situations where you have to bite also. Right? But we should avoid that. You shouldn't use that as an example. I'm protecting my family. I can bite whoever I want. Right? That shouldn't be the thing. It's an emergency situation, then you have to do what you have to do. Right? But so I mentioned this to a monk. I mentioned this to a monk about this. He said, no, monks cannot hiss. We've lost the right. You lost the right to hiss. That's a hard one. I still hiss all the time, right? Because it's like that's for householders that have to hiss to protect their family and protect their property, right? A monk has no property, no family. You don't have to hiss. You've lost the right to hiss, right? You're completely. So I'm just sure example. There's harshness, but it's interesting. The Patanjali doesn't make those distinctions. Or at least maybe it does. It still says, but it says that there's no way around it. So the next verse says, Jati Desha Kala Samaya. Jati Desha Kala. Usually Holy Mother said, according to Desha, according to Jati, according to person, adjust. According to place, adjust. According to time, adjust. According to situation, adjust. This is Holy Mother's advice to people, right? But Patanjali says, these 5, you can't adjust. According to place, don't adjust. According to person, don't adjust. These are meant for, if you're a yogi, you have to deal with these things. There's no way around it. Right? It says person, place, time, and situation. These can't be adjusted. They are related to all stages of yoga. It says, all stages is sarva, bauhumaha, and then mahavratam. These are the great vow, and the mahavratam. Right. And then it gives 5 niyamas, the 5 observances. And you can see they're also related. Purification, saucha. The word saucha is there. That's how, where do you put it, right? Then it says contentment. Tapaha, santosha means tapaha, austerity. Right? Swadhyaya means self-study or study of the scriptures. Ishwa pradina, surrender and worship of the Supreme Lord. Right? These are listed as the niyama, the recommended behavior. Right? But actually, so these are the most lists of 10. Also, they add peace, shama, patience, driti, fortitude, daya. Here we got daya again, compassion, arjava, non-hypocrisy or sincerity. That's another thing about honesty, right? And mitahara. Mitahara means moderation in eating, right? That's another thing we have to, right? And also that's related to all kinds of things, not just not overeating, but what you eat is also important, right? Mitahara has a particular meaning. Mitahara literally means, the yogic definition of mitahara is fill your stomach halfway with food, 1/4 with water, and 1/4 with air, right? So in other words, don't overeat, right? And then do your sadhana. Otherwise, you won't be able to do spiritual practice, right? But that's the literal discipline. It's not easy to do. It means you get up from your meal slightly hungry, right? Because 1/4 for space, for air, or for digestive, right? Right. But it also means 1/4. It's how you live your life also. Because we don't just eat food; we eat everything, right? All our senses. So we have to control. We have to don't overdo. Leave space for grace, right? Don't overeat with anything. Anyways. So this is tapasya listed in Yoga Sutra as Yamas Niyamas. In the Gita, and I'll get to the Gita, chapter 17, the later chapter of the Gita people they don't get to, right? Right? They're really important, right? And Jaima, they're really important. So it mentions there's 3 types of tapasya is listed in the Gita as threefold, 3 types of tapasya. Right? There's austerity of the body, there's austerity of the tongue, and austerity of the mind. Right? I think there's a verse I had here, down the bottom here. Somebody in the complete works of Swami Bhajanananda, somebody asked Swami Bhajanananda, right? What is tapasya? And he says, tapasya threefold. He also immediately said it's these three things, right? Of the body, of speech, and of mind. Right? And then he summarizes. The Gita lists a whole bunch of stuff, but he summarizes that list. I'll read the list just so you hear it, and I'll give it to you. But just to summarize the list, he says, the first of the body is service of others. That's how you control your body. Serve others with your body, right? Then, second of this is truthfulness. You control your speech through speaking the truth, right? And the third is control and concentration. You control the mind through concentration, right? So let's see so he immediately summarized. What's tapasya? Oh, tapasya is three types: body, mind, and body, speech, and mind. Which means the body you serve others, right? With speech you speak the truth, and with mind you concentrate. That's austerity of the body, mind, and speech. Even like I bring this, I'm not really a dandi sanya. We don't walk around with our danda all the time, but when I speak, I always keep it as per tradition. So there's two types of danda. One is a single danda, represents the one truth and all this, and discipline. But then there's a way where it's three poles tied together. And Krishna in the Bhagavatam mentions what those three poles represent. Danda means discipline. So it's the three disciplines of body, mind, speech, and mind. Right? So he says carrying three bamboo sticks without control of the body, of speech and mind is just carrying bamboo. Right? The real thing is not the bamboo sticks, is the real danda should be that. Right? So I read these just for the sake of, you can hear the Gita. This is starting from verse, chapter 17, 14, 15, and 16, I think. Right? Deva Dvija, this is about the body. Deva Dvija Guru Prajna, Pujanam, Sauchanam, Aravajam, Brahmacharyam, Ahimsa, Cha, Sharinam, Tap Uchate. Sharinam, the body, Tapa Uchate. What is spoken about, what is called austerities of the body. So it says pujanam, worship or service of who? Deva Dvija Guru Prajna. Deva means God or the gods, the divine, right? Dvija means the twice born. Here it refers in the old language as a Brahmin, right? Or actually not just Brahmins, the twice born, but people of spiritual people of sattvic quality, so holy people, right? Guru, our spiritual teacher and spiritual teachers. And Prajna means the wise. And the commentary means parents, elders, not just wise people, but also we have to also serve our parents and our elders and appropriate like that, right? Worshipful service of God, the divine, the saintly, are the guru and the wise, right? Worship of God, Brahmins, the guru, the wise, and elders is done, but how? Saucham, with purity. Again, we get the same words are going to come up again. These saucham, right, with purity, with cleanliness, purity, simplicity, celibacy, brahmacharya, which was sexual control, all right, and nonviolence. So again, you see, we have these four, really the four legs of service of others, right, of the holy of people. We serve, use your body in service, while following, while being conscious of these four principles of dharma, right? Satyam, tapasya, daya, like that we're talking about, right? Then speech. This one I get the anuvegha karam vakyam satyam priya hitam chayat swadhyaya abhashanam chaiva vanmayam tapa uchite. What is spoken of as of did I skip one? Maybe I skipped one. No, body of speech. Tapa uchite. Vanmaya. Yeah. Okay. So the words. So it's control of the words. How do we control the words? It says words that do not cause distress. Right. Our speech often causes so much distress. Right. Words that cause distress, that are truthful, right, inoffensive, right, and beneficial, right. So these are four nice checklists, right. Is it inoffensive, truthful, not distressful, truthful, inoffensive, and beneficial, as well as regular recitation of the scriptures, swadhyaya, right. right? Vedic scriptures or the mantras or like study of the scriptures. I mean, that's how we use our tongue. So it helps actually if you're reciting mantras, doing kirtan. We use our tongue auspiciously, glorifying God, reading the scriptures, talking about the saints. This is the proper use, right? But chanting God's name is the best use of the tongue, right? But if we're going to speak, we shouldn't speak harsh things like this, right? Right. That is considered austerity speech. And of the mind, what is all the serenity of thought, manaha prasadaha samyayatvam maunam atma vinigraha bhava sanshuddhir iti eta tapo manasyam uchate. Serenity of thought, gentleness, silence, self-control, and purity of purpose. All these are declared as austerities of the mind. Right? So where austerity has to happen is in these three places, right? We have to be careful and control we shouldn't beat ourselves up, but we should, spiritualists, if we're what's our foundation? We have to be careful with these things, right? And so we know where the work has to be done. Some in our body, mind, and speech, right? And Thakur said, again, that it's the control of body, mind, and speech. This is austerity, right? So all these yamas, niyamas, these rules, things to avoid and things to do, right? Disciplines that don't do that because it's a discipline. It's going to caught a little bit. Okay, you got it. And then, or have to do this, right? So there's a great line. Actually, I first heard it in a Vaishnav text in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. It's quoted. It's also quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita. But actually, the original text is in Padma Purana. There's a very important verse, right? It describes the real yama and real niyama, the real restraint and the real observance, right? Padmecha, the Padma Purana says, right? So it's quoting, right? Even in the other text, it starts always as this, right? Maybe I haven't practiced this one, and even when I practice, my tongue's not obeying. It says one should smartya vya satatam vishnur, right? One should always remember Vishnu. Or you should always remember God. That's the observance, right? And what's the restriction? Can anybody guess? Never forget God. Always remember Vishnu and never forget Vishnu, right? That's the yama, that's niyama, right? And that's really the purpose of the yamas and niyamas. That's really the purpose of these restrictions given in the Bhagavatam, or warnings given in the Bhagavatam. That's our spiritual life. In Kali Yuga, we started it in Kali Yuga. Bhakti is our path, is the path. Right? If Bhakti is a path, our dharma attacks it, right? And so we have to, and makes us think of it. If you have attraction for God, right? Blessed you are, right? Protect that like anything, right? Do whatever it takes not to forget God and always remember God. And our dharma in this age attacks. It is at the very root of these things. Be very careful. It's like, okay. So this may be also next week's talk. I'm only halfway through this one. I thought I was going to get through the whole thing, but so let's just look at a few of these, or at least one of them. Maybe it's 6:17, so we have 15 minutes. So let's look at one of them. Just one. Oh no, we talked about tapas. Tapas is one of them, right? And what the purpose of tapas is to, and also some control has to be there, obviously. So let's look at control of speech or control of dishonesty or deceit, to the austerity of truth. So in the four legs of dharma, right, the bull, he's on one leg on truth, right? So Sri Ramakrishna quoting this, not quoting it, but quoting this. Well, he didn't talk about as far as I know, I've never read where he talks about the four legs of dharma. But he made a comment that's definitely based upon this background, right? He says truthfulness in speech, right, is the tapasya of Kali Yuga. So the discipline of Kali Yuga is truthfulness. He didn't say purity, compassion, right? Because that's not. These aren't really. If you lose truth, and we hit on this last week considerably. A lie hits different than finding out somebody, goofed up on something else, right? When somebody lies to you, it stings different. It's different, or a politician does it, or a leader does it, or a friend does it. It's different than when you realize, oh, my politician, all secretly he was, well, that's what politicians do. I mean, I don't want to know what politicians do, right? It's like, but it hurts, when it's critical. So anyway, so Sri Ramakrishna said, truthfulness in speech this is the direct quote from the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. In speech is the tapasya, the austerity of Kali Yuga. It is difficult to practice other austerities in this age. That's a fact, right? So I'm encouraging you, and the Bhagavatam is encouraging you to practice all the austerity, all the disciplines, all the being careful and all these things. But this one, Thakur said, you can't give this one up, right? And still succeed, right? And then he quote, by adhering to truth, one attains God. That's what a statement. If nothing else, you simply speak the truth, you'll attain God. This is good news. Are everything okay? Okay, yeah. So this is very good news, right? Or is it? Because that's really hard. Right? Or I could just be saying none of you are going to attain God, and I'm not going to attain God, because it's not easy, right? But that is the message, right? And then he quotes, Tulsidas said, Goswami Tulsidas, right? And I've looked for it. I haven't found it I don't have a compendium, and I haven't found this verse. I think we have somebody to ask. It's like maybe there's also Bengali versions of Tulsidas' Ramayana that Thakur may be quoting from. But also Tulsidas didn't just write his Ramayana. He wrote hundreds of hymns and texts and treatises, right? So maybe this is there. But Sri Ramakrishna quoted this many times, right? So whether Tulsidas said it or Sri Ramakrishna saying it, Sri Ramakrishna has even more authority than Tulsidas to say this, right? Even if he makes something up, that's now literally gospel truth, right? So he says, Tulsidas says, speaking the truth, truthfulness, devotion to God, focus on God, right? And regarding others' wives as your mother, right? Already these are connected, right? If you speak the truth, you focus on God, and you see other people's wives, or wives seeing other people's husbands, or wives seeing other people who look at them, purely, right? As mothers, right? Or sons, like this. Other than their husband. There's also thing is like, women should not see their husbands only as children. They should see them as their husbands, right? As well as children. Because the human relationship is friends, children, everything like that. But other people's husbands, other people's wives should be seen a certain way, right? So Tulsidas says, if truthfulness, devotion to God, and regarding others' wives as one's mothers, these are the greatest virtues. These are the greatest virtues, right? If one does not realize God by practicing them, right, then Tulsidas is a liar. So he bases his whole reputation on these three things. If this is not true, you don't need to read Tulsidas' Ramayana. You should stop chant. You don't need to chant Hanuman Chalisa anymore, right? Because it means it's not true. If this is not true, nothing he says is true. Tulsidas is basing his reputation on this fact, right? These are the great virtues, right? Truthfulness, devotion to God, right? And seeing other people purely, right? And if this doesn't get you God, nothing will get you God, for starters, right? But definitely, you don't need to read anything else of Tulsidas. He's a liar, right? So Sri Ramakrishna said, the virtue of truthfulness is most important. If a man always speaks the truth and holds on to the truth tenaciously, he will realize God. Why? Because God is truth. Satyam Shivam Sundaram, right? We started this, right? This is the nature of God. It's also our nature, right? You want to realize yourself. You want to realize just this. Take any one of these. You'll get the whole thing, right? Right? So there's a beautiful scene. Did I write it here? Yes. So Sri Ramakrishna, these are foundational things, right? Sri Ramakrishna was flying in rapture, right? He was having visions. He was rolling on the ground, right? He was having a burning plowshed go up his spine. I mean, his spiritual experiences are inconceivable if you put them together, right? Devotion was the highest thing. He was willing to give up everything for the vision of Ma. He was not in the vision of Ma. He was willing to give everything for bhakti, for pure bhakti. And so he says, after my vision of the Divine Mother, this is after the Divine Mother, I prayed to her, taking hibiscus flowers, like these beautiful flowers in my hands. And I prayed to her, Mother, Here is thy knowledge and here is thy ignorance. Usually we want knowledge and want to get written, but he says, here, take them both, mother, and give me pure love for you. Right? Here is thy holiness and here is thy unholiness. Take them both, mother, and give me pure love. Here is thy good and here is thy evil. Take them both, mother, and give me pure love. Here is thy dharma and adharma, righteous, unrighteousness. Take them both, mother, and give me pure love. That was his prayer. That's where hopefully we're aiming at in bhakti. That's the goal, right? Right. Right. I mentioned all these, but I couldn't say, mother, here is thy truth. And here is thy falsehood. Take them both. I gave up everything at her feet, but could not bring myself to give up truth. Right? And Thakur said, and Swami Sharananda comments on this in the Lila Prasanga, that why is that? Of course, it's the austerity of the age, and there's no religion without it, right? And ruins and untruth ruins religion and pollutes us, destroys everything. But then is devotion real? If he says, I want God, I want only God, how is that true if it's not based upon truth? Right? Even his own statements about his own desire for God, are they true? What do they say? You have to stand on something. Swami, my Guruji, Swami Omananda, one time said, okay, say something that's not based on truth. Right? He was challenging me. Of course, you don't want to purposely lie in front of the Guru, but now it's an instruction. So I said, say something that's obviously a lie. That's not based on truth. Okay. And I said something like, Guruji is not in the ashram today. Right? It's like, he says, so that's a lie, right? Is it based on truth? It's based on truth. Because in order to think that, I had to think what the truth was in order to create the lie. Even so, the truth is the foundation of it, right? Without that, there's nothing, right? So then the question is, I have more pages. We always say Swami Shivananda to the rescue, right? Swami Shivananda, if you know Swami Shivananda's books, he gives good shoe beatings on spiritual practice. He gives instructions on how to correct. Why do we lie? How to analyze what motivates us and how to correct it, right? I tried to practice these things very young when I first read Swami Shivananda's books in high school. I walked around with a pad of paper, and every time I tell even a stupid little white lie, write it down and then ask myself why, see the through line. Why is it that we, even stupid little lies, right? And usually it comes, I for myself, at that time, I haven't done this because I don't want to be embarrassed of my own self-image of myself, right? And reveal too much to you, right? But at that time, usually it was protecting self-image, right? Remember the three things that ruin these things. One of them is pride, right? And so it's an interesting thing that's one of the things. So there's a Sanskrit verse I had the verse, I typed it up, I saved it and cut it and pasted it, and then it disappeared. Right, so I was going to recite it, impress everybody with according to Manusmriti. Of course, maybe it's not that impressive. Manusmriti doesn't always impress everybody, but it's an ancient verse that talks about truthfulness, and it gives some rules. So I'm going to give you the translation of it, or the points of it without the verse. Couldn't find it again. So it says, truth has four aspects, right? One is speaking the truth, speaking what's true, right? Speaking what is pleasant. Right? Not speaking an unpleasant truth. Sometimes, of course, we have different relations with each other. We have to correct somebody. That's another thing. But sometimes people use, I'm being truthful. You're ugly. You suck. You're mean. I don't like you. It's like you're ugly and your mother dresses you funny or something like this. Whatever it is, like unpleasant truths. That's not truth. Speaking like that, so speaking the truth, speaking the pleasant. Not speaking an unpleasant truth, and not speaking an untruth to please others. Sometimes in order to please people, we speak an untruth, right? And so, when I was in high school, when I was thinking these things, I first heard there's a little something to remember, and I think it was like, Rumi said. At that time, of course, Rumi said everything, right? Turns out probably Rumi didn't say. He said many things, but almost nothing what's online is what Rumi said, right? Or maybe a Sufi saying. Then I've read it, a Zen saying. So I don't know where the saying comes from. Maybe somebody can trace the source of it, or maybe it's just something gets passed on, somebody said it. Now, in order to keep it going, you have to say Rumi said it to keep it alive, right? And so when he says that there should be 3 gates before you speak something. It's a summary of this verse, right? One is that before it should pass 3 gates. One, is it true? Right? If that's not true, it shouldn't pass that gate, right? The next one, is it necessary? Right? Most of the stuff we say may be true, but rarely necessary, right? Careful. No, okay. And then the third one, is it kind? Right? And so this is a way of thinking of these things, right? So next week maybe we'll continue with Daya, Saucha, some other things can be done, the importance of good company and things like this, right? But I wanted to say, if those of you, what I'm thinking about and what I'm studying and when I'm researching, I'm also posting for our friends to think about as preparing. So I posted thinking of my guru's guru, Yogiraj Handia Baba, lived to be well over 100, great yogi. So I these verses, these sayings, not verses, these are some of his sayings that my guru recorded of his guru. So these are, I wanted to read them. I've been meditating upon them all week. I've been meditating upon them most of my adult life, but this week I've been contemplating them. He says, it is dangerous to ascertain whether a snake is poisonous by letting it bite you. Right? That's not how you find out, it's like, this is foolish, right? All suffering comes from carelessness, right? With full awareness, nobody would consciously, knowingly drink poison. Hence, the real task is to remain constantly alert and always careful. So the commands and prohibitions of the great sages should always be respected. Similarly, to doubt and disbelieve the teachings of such great people, of our gurus, masters, scriptures, is to waste this human life, so difficult to attain. Failure is a pillar of success. While learning to walk, an infant falls again. This is my favorite thing. This little boy, right? He's now running around like anything, right? She's soon running around. Right now she's falling, right? Those falls they're not, oh my gosh, she fell. She'll never walk. We should throw her away. Send her off to the research laboratory. No chance, right? No. Her falls, he says that, anyways, Guruji says that an infant's incessant running lies concealed in its falls, right? Our success lies concealed in our fall, in our struggles, like that. A truly courageous sadhak sees the seeds of his success within his failures. Then he says, the mind will slowly be controlled through discipline. Fear will slowly go away. The soul has slept a long time. Bit by bit it will awaken. Practice without hesitation. I'll give you a guarantee. If you continually practice with firm discipline, you shall surely be successful. And so my meditation on these is that we struggle with many things, right? And we should be careful. The warning is the scriptures and the sages and our gurus, they warn us to be careful, right? And so we should be careful. We shouldn't act foolishly, right? We waste opportunity to be under their guidance, right? We waste this life, so rare. Human life is very rare. Human life under the guidance of the saint is very, very rare, right? Especially if you have real spiritual interest, very, very rare, right? But we have samskaras, we have habits. So Swami Omananda, my sannyas guru, he told me, he's like, we're struggling with, all of us are struggling. I was struggling with something, right? And I won't too embarrassed to tell you what it is. My self-image won't allow it, right? Whatever it is, you can imagine. Don't imagine. Think about your own problems, not my problems. What are you pointing your fingers at me for, right? Right? But he says we've had thousands of lives, right? We've been every imaginable animal, cruel animals, right? We've been every imaginable person. The samskaras, the patterns are there, so we'll have to struggle a little bit, right? They don't go away easily, right? So his point was, don't beat yourself up on it, right? Purify them as best you can, right? And get up and let's get to work type of thing, right? Like this, right? And he also gave promise, if you practice sincerely, right, and you don't give up, you we can succeed. We can still succeed, right? And what's a success? We talked about this is true of anything in life. It's true of any spiritual ideal. We're talking about bhakti. We'll focus we'll end next week a little bit more with the big punchline of this talk, or next week's talk also, right, on what we're really after and how important what we're after really is, and why we have to be careful and we can't give up when we mess up, right? Niranjana, can I get your attention? Calling, paging Niranjana. Just something you said. You tell your children, like, what is it, like, when you mess up?
We all mess up, but how to make a proper apology. Yeah. You say, I messed up. I'm sorry. What can I do to make it right?
Yeah. So whatever it is, that's true. Yeah. I messed up. I apologize. What can I do to make it right? Right. So that's true of that's true whatever our struggle is, right? How do we fix it? I mean, not everything requires an apology. Some things are private, and it depends what you heard of somebody else or something like that. But also sometimes the apology is to ourselves. I messed up. I apologize. Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. Okay. So anyways, I went over, as I always do. Okay. Anyways, it's a good place to end. Thank you very much for your kind attention. And we would give questions and answers, but we have to do puja. And is that my phone ringing? No. Okay, it's the same. Otherwise, I don't know if somebody's calling from India. So, and if you have any questions, save them for next week, because the topics we brought up this week, we'll just build a few more, and then give my big closing. So we'll do that next week. As you know, as you're learning, my lecture style is to have enough for a month of talks, and think I'm going to put it into an hour or hour and a half. But anyways, Jai Sri Guru Maharaj Ji ki Jai, Jai Mahamaya ki Jai, Swamiji Maharaj Ji ki Jai, Jai Ma Dakshineshwari Bhavatarini Dakshina Kali ki Jai, Jai Ma. Hari Om. And we have a drummer. I'm very happy. Govinda. Om Gring Simadakshina Kanagaive Abdisevam Darshayami Namaha. ki Jai Ma Bhavatarini Dakshina Kali ki Jai Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa Deva ki Jai Jagannatha Sri Sharada Devi ki Jai Jagacharya Swami Vivekananda Maharaji ki Jai Purna Tirtha Rakineshwar Dham ki Jai Namah Parvati Patsaye Hara 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 Mahadev. Turn up. Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma. The trust came through today.
Yeah.
They were very excited. Good to see you. When did you come back? You've been back. Oh, you've been here. I don't know who's here where. I don't know where I am, to be honest. You went right. You're. I thought. In my mind, I thought you went after the concert. Go ahead. After the concert.
Exciting.
Did you find the tools?
I did.
Tune up.
The last two. Okay.
You need one?
Oh.
We're in the same condition. But I have to stand and do it.
Breathe.
I guess you just have to breathe to do this.
Oh. It's gone. That's weird.
Is it ours or yours?
No, this is in my car.
You have one somewhere? We don't have one.
I don't know.
Not anymore.
Do you have a 2D?
Not yet. It's above my pay grade.
Me too. And I'm the drummer.
Tapakaya Chadarmasya Sarvadharma Swarupine Avatar Varishnaya Ramakrishnaya Namaha Om Jananim Sharanam Devi Ramakrishna Jagadguru Varapadme Jayostritva Namami Maharam Kali Kali Shiva 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 Durga Shiva Durga Durga Shiva 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 Kali 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 Shiva 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 Durga Durga Shiva तन जान के सुमिरो पवन कुमार बल विद्या ज्ञान गुण सागर जय कपीश तिनु लोक उजागर रामदूत अतुलित बल राम हरि कलि भक्त प्रवृत्ति कुलावा भावी वचलग्नि कपति राम वचल बल लवराज सागर पद्दल गुप्त हाथ गच्छो गजावराज पादे बोल चले यूसाज चक्कर चोर की सरी नंदन कीर्ति प्रताप भाव सुमंद विद्यावान बलि अधिपात आपकात कवि पात तुलसी दर्शन दे गो बसिया राम लखन सीता वलन
Achyutam Keshavam Krishna Damodaram Achyutam Keshavam Krishna Damodaram Ramanarayanam Janaki Vallabham Ramanarayanam Janaki Vallabham Karate Bhagavan Ate Nahi Karate Bhagavan Ate Nahi Tubabira ke jaise bulate nahi Tubabira ke jaise bulate nahi Achyutam Keshavam Krishna Damodaram Achyutam Keshavam Krishna Damodaram Ramanarayanam Janaki Vallabham Ramanarayanam Janaki Vallabham Karate Bhagavan Ate nahi Karate Bhagavan Ate nahi Tera Shabari ke jaise ginate nahi Tera Shabari ke jaise ginate nahi Achyutam Keshavam Krishna Damodaram Achyutam Keshavam Krishna Damodaram Ramanarayanam Janaki Vallabham Ramanarayanam Janaki Vallabham Karate Bhagavan Sote nahi Karate Bhagavan Sote nahi Jaya Sudha ke jaise sunate nahi Jaya Sudha ke jaise sunate nahi Achyutam Keshavam Krishna Damodaram Achyutam Keshavam Krishna Damodaram Ramanarayanam Janaki Vallabham Ramanarayanam Janaki Vallabham Karate Bhagavan Raste nahi Karate Bhagavan Raste nahi Gopiyon ki tarah tum log chaude nahi Gopiyon ki tarah tum log chaude nahi Achyutam Keshavam Krishna Damodaram Achyutam Keshavam Krishna Damodaram Ramanarayanam Janaki Vallabham
Excellent. Great job. Om Sarva Mangala Mangale Shive Sarvata Sarike Sharanye Trambake Narayani Namaste Kristi Sthiti Vinashanam Shakti Buddhi Sanatani Gunashraye Narayani Namaste Nagatarinartha Paritrana Parayane Sarvasatvi Harideva Narayani Namaste Jaya Narayani Namaste Jaya Narayani Namaste Jaya Narayani Namaste Jaya Narayani Namaste Jai Mahamaya ki Jai Jai Bhagavan Shri Ram Krishna Deva ki Jai Jai Swamiji Maharaj ki Jai Jai